On this episode of A Soul's Quest podcast, Omar and I are going to be discussing the importance of understanding values, or as Maslow puts it, our basic human needs. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're talking today about values and needs. Mm-hmm. So specifically Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The basic. Okay. So what are values and needs?
Okay. I'm trying to find a metaphor, right? Or an analogy that is not too dated.
Yeah.
But so let's say you're building a house, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the most important part of that house is always the foundation, right? If you have a weak foundation, your house could collapse, right?
Right.
So the way I look at life, or the way that I've learned to look at life, is by understanding the importance of your individual needs,
right? Which
and your individual values. Let me say your individual values,
okay,
which really correlate, in my opinion, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
You know, so that foundation, understanding really what's important to you, your why, what's in it for you, understanding that those foundations, which also happen to be somewhat universal, right, sets the standards for everything that comes after.
Right.
So whatever goal you want to pursue, if your foundation is it's strong and is set and you truly understand it, then those things become easier. The setbacks, when you don't achieve those things, it's much, much easier to understand once you understand the foundational values and needs.
Which makes sense. You got to have, I think that's one of the things that I was missing when I was younger is establishing my values, right? I always knew that I needed to have so Maslow's hierarchy of needs is basically the bottom of, it's the pyramid, right? And the bottom of the pyramid is that basic need, right? Shelter, food, and then you have, the safety, and then you have your, your physiological needs, and then you go into your esteem,
your psychological needs,
and then ultimately you get to that self actualizing, which is what it's now referred to, right?
And what you're seeing right now, and I think this is what affects a lot of people, is the fact that they want to jump from you don't have your foundation set, but you want to go ahead and self-actualize when that foundation is set,
right.
Or you want to have esteem.
Okay, yeah.
When that foundation is not set,
right?
Because
that's so you're saying people want to skip to the top, but they got to think about what is down in here.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that there's a couple of reasons. One, it's ignorance, and I don't mean ignorance in the fact that people are beneath. Is that we just don't know. There's our education system doesn't their main objective is to find a career, stick with a career so that you have all your safety, so you are financially okay and you don't have to live in the streets, right? That's the objective of that. The family consequently has become the same thing. Religion was the only thing that we had that gave us something more than just our regular existence of survival, right? But what happens is that if we truly don't understand that, then you become you are at the whim of everything that happens around you,
right? Because
you don't understand those basic
You're
things.
Influenced by those things.
Yeah,
totally.
Because it's easier if a person that knows their direction and knows it's like an animal, right? You know that there are animals that are, once an animal gets targeted and focused on something, right? It goes for it until it's like, okay, I can't get it. So, right. No, but does a let's say a lioness is preying in the desert. If they don't catch their prey, do they just give up and quit?
Yeah, no, of course not.
No, that basic need, it's too strong. It will keep you going even if you fail.
Right.
But most of us, and what happens for most of our lives, is that we set goals, but we don't understand why. We truly don't understand why. And because that foundation it hasn't been set.
That's interesting, actually. Because when people set goals, I think they feel like they do know why. You know what I mean? But so what you're saying essentially is that we want to achieve this level of success, whatever that is for that individual, but without understanding or fulfilling our basic needs, then just to make sure I understand what you're saying, then you're saying that meeting that or self-actualizing or meeting that goal or success is not sustainable?
No. So let me ask you a question, right? There's a lot of people that talk about success, right? You hear that word success thrown out like just everywhere. What is the definition of success in terms, let's put it like this. What is our definition of success? How does our culture define it right now? From your point of view?
My point of view, money, being esteemed, having a high level of education, perhaps,
or having a status in society.
I was just going to say, or a title, driving a nice car, things like that. I think those are the values that our society has placed on, especially our young people.
Right? Yeah. So if you look at that, right, it's not about your basic needs, and it's not about those security needs or the need to belong to something or being part of a group.
The focus is on this is what you get, but you're not talking about the basic
everything
needs.
else. Success in our culture, it's primarily all financial and all about consumerism. I mean, that's what a success is. Because if success was measured in a different way, why do we idolize like superstars, movie stars? Like why do we idolize them? Why do we idolize a performer? These are the models that we have, and this is the idea of success. That's why you see people changing their bodies, doing all these things to fit that standard that society has set, right? But the assumption is that everybody's going to get there. But what happens a lot of the time is that you see people that are not down here meeting the basic needs, trying to strive for that model without understanding exactly what really is important.
Right. Like we need to have these basic needs fulfilled in order to attain that level of success.
In order to progress.
Right.
The thing is that one of the things that we talked about in the Soul Quest is it's understanding the hierarchy of needs. It's understanding that, and that's one aspect of our thought process. You have to understand the hierarchy of need. The second part that you do have to understand is that we project and we transition to different stages in life, right? We start very dependent. We want to become self-reliant. Then we want to be mature, and then we want to work on self-actualizing. These are stages that by understanding your basic needs, you are easily able to transition through these stages. But if you don't understand it, it's going to become more difficult. That's why, for a parent, it's difficult to understand that a teenager wants to be self-reliant. But they want to protect. They come from a good place. They want to protect their child. But they also are not guiding anymore. And this is what the conflict in young people and parents or people in authority and young people, that's why you have that conflict, because that separation needs to happen, because there is a need for self-assertion that a young person wants, that they want that need fulfilled. So to go back to as a starting point, it's universally Maslow identified the needs that we all need to fill. Our basic safety, security. We have a place to stay. I got food to eat, and my life is not in danger.
Right.
We need that.
Right.
We also need security in terms of we need to find a way to constantly produce so we maintain a certain lifestyle. Right. Then I need to belong to, we want to belong to a group. We want to belong to somebody. We want to have relationships, meaningful relationships with people that are close to us. We want that as well,
Right.
and then we want to be able to find some kind of a passion that we could pursue and have all these different needs met simultaneously. And knowing that we're always going to be learning and evolving. And that's the beauty of and the importance of understanding values and needs. That in a nutshell. And I think most people, if they look back and look at struggles in their life, it's because they don't truly know what needs they're having. And these are things that are universal. I think that they're universal. They manifest in different ways with different types of people.
Yeah.
And because of different cultures.
But
if you look at the need for that self-actualizing, right? That ability to go as you please and follow your own path. That's a very individual human thing to want.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
We just have to be able to understand it so that we are able to give people their proper due.
Right. Okay. So then what are our core values different from what you're talking about, what you were just talking about now?
No, not much different. They vary from culture to culture, but for instance, in our culture, a woman being more submissive is traditionally what the culture demands, right? And, the woman stays at home, you cook, and the husband goes out there. It's like that's the traditional machista culture, right? And for that matter, that's been traditionally male dominated cultures what they do, But what is the fear, right? From the male perspective, the fear is that other individual, the female is self-reliant,
In certain cultures, yeah.
Yeah. that this woman wants to assert herself too.
Right.
Right. And there's a fear of that. And it's like another person not understanding a basic human need, of wanting to express themselves, wanting to quest on to self-actualize. Right. So, we that's our culture traditionally, and I think it's getting better now, but it tended to do that, and we have to understand it, kind of look at it with soft eyes, but understand that if you prevent someone, you wanted to be a doctor, you wanted to go to school, right? We talked about it and I said, go for it, right? Were you daydreaming?
No, I wasn't. I thought you were like just... Never mind. You were talking to me. I got you.
Yes, I was talking to you.
I wanted
right?
to be a doctor, not that kind of doctor, but yes.
But previously, you didn't have that opportunity with another partner, right? I'm saying that I'm better than. That's not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that to understand that you need that core value to push and to do something that you want to do, even if you fail, you have the freedom to at least try. To at least go out there. That's a basic human need, and that's a core human need. Another need. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
another need that's super important is that need for security. And how does that manifest itself? You got a place to live. You're not worried that something's going to happen to you. You have either a profession or a trade or a way of generating income that will sustain your lifestyle, right? That's a important need. There's questions of how that need is going to be met, but that's a very important need, So these are core values that each individual needs, because I don't care what anybody says, but I think that a person that is constantly dependent on somebody else for their, obviously, unless you have a condition or are born with a certain disabilities. Obviously, that's a different case. But if you're a capable person that you are depending on somebody else to sustain you, that robs at your core.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Kabbalah Center. We learned it. They used to call it bread of shame, right? Because you can't just give and take and take. It takes away at your humanity too, at your ability to wanting to strive to be something more, or to find out what's inside of you, or discover or create. It takes away if you become just a taker.
Right. I guess my thing to you then is, because this is an important subject, but I've always believed that core values, and I see what you're saying about how they're related to our needs and how that is important. I get that. They're totally correlated. But core values too are the things that you believe in that make you the person that you are, that you identify with, sort of like have a respect for your elders. That it's a basic, one, but those types of values, you understand what I mean? Like having that moral compass, I guess. You know what I mean? So whenever I talk about core values, that's what I immediately go to.
Like, give me an example of one specific one that you're thinking that is a core value.
Gosh, a core value, like to be honesty. That's a very basic core value.
Why do you want to be honest? Why do you feel it's important to be honest?
I think it's important to be honest so that people have trust in you. They believe you. They look at you and they think, she's a stand-up girl. You can depend on her, or whatever. So I look at honesty as something that's important. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this: what happens when you're dishonest?
I feel bad if I'm dishonest because I know.
Oh, but let me rephrase that.
Okay.
What happens if you're dishonest and the people that you are dishonest to, they find out?
They lack trust in you. Some of them may even not even speak to you anymore. They might not want to have a relationship with you. They, a lot of things happen. There's a lot of consequences that come from that.
Excellent point. So when you look at it, right, when you're honest, you're able to keep people around because people trust you. They will feel comfortable around you.
Right.
So you develop relationships, right? Which is one of our basic needs, to be able to compare with another. And the opposite, if we do the opposite,
then you push people away.
People away.
That's what I wanted to get out of you.
So then you begin to see that, yes, it is important to be loyal, but the core reason why is because you want to be able to have long, sustainable relationships that are meaningful.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good. I just wanted to make it make sense to people, because when I think of core values, I think, oh yeah, loyalty, honesty,
trust.
Be dependent, dependable, those kinds of things. Not a lot of people would just jump to, oh yeah, I associate that with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is important. This is correlated to, and that's what I wanted to draw out of you, is to make that connection.
Make that correlation.
Yeah, because
let's do another example. Think of another example. So you said loyalty is a core value that people have. What else? Give me another one.
I don't know. If you're talking about maybe on the esteem level, being gosh, I don't know. I can't think of anything.
I want to have self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
That's a big thing in the self-help, right, world. I want to
have confidence.
I want to build my self-esteem and build my confidence, right? So, what does it mean that you have low self-esteem? Well,
that you don't. You're afraid to do things. You're afraid to take chances. You don't think highly of yourself. You think less than. You don't think that, oh, I'm just not as good as that. I want to be like that person. I want to do those things too. That's having low confidence and low self-esteem. So, and for me, that's what that is.
Yeah. So you don't feel capable of something.
Right.
You don't feel like you could do a certain thing.
This person's doing it. I know I can't do it.
At that level.
Have what it takes. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So what happens is that when you look at that situation about not having any self-esteem, not feeling good about who you are, it's a couple of things. It's like to go back to the beginning and say, all right, are all my basic needs met?
Right.
Right? If the answer to that is no, then you need to focus on that because you cannot compare yourself to somebody else if your basic needs and that basic feeling of security, until you have that structure, you can't compare yourself to anybody.
Right.
And doing so, it's going to be at your detriment.
Right.
Number one.
Well, it's not fathom. Right. It doesn't make sense to do that.
And then who is the steam that who do you want to get the steam from? Is the steam coming out from you? Like, I want to feel good about who I am as an individual, or is it based on somebody else's perception of you?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because self-esteem is about, okay, is it esteem from others or esteem from myself?
Right.
Right?
Right.
If it's from you, that's hard to achieve. You know, because as much as I want to, we don't live in isolation. You know, we're taking things in from everywhere constantly. So for you to have self-esteem and stand up for yourself without any masks or anything, it takes a lot of work to get to that point. Yeah. Most of what we think of self-esteem is because we want somebody else to look at us in a certain way.
Yeah, definitely. But
that's the reason why.
Right.
Again, it goes back to feeling that you belong to something. Right. To belong, to be a part of something. You want to be accepted. You want to be recognized.
So this is where you go back to making sure that you examine your values and understanding why it is that we want this. Is it for our own purposes, our own desires, our own needs, or is it because of somebody else, because we want to be part of this group, or because, and it's not, I don't think it's so bad to want to be a part of a group, but for what is the reason that you want to do that?
Yeah.
Right.
That's well, but saying. Again, it's like, it's like if you ask anybody, hey, do you want to be part of the lower middle class? Oh, no. Ew. I don't want to do that. Right. Right.
That was a funny face.
Nobody wants to do that. Right.
Right.
But seldom do you see somebody in that level. Just, you know, let me rephrase that. Seldom do you see a person in that quote unquote status do you see them presented in society living a good life?
That's true.
And it happens a lot. True. It happens quite a bit. I don't think
I've seen any movie stars that, well, I take that back, I have, but they don't highlight that.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? They highlight the lavish lifestyle, because the nice cars.
Exactly. Right. That's the model.
Right.
And that is the way that you're measuring your esteem. Because if you're there at that point, then
you're not successful.
Right. Right.
And so that's what you're measuring your success.
That's what you're measuring your success. That's how you're measuring yourself outside. You're measuring who you are as an individual from something outside of you.
It's unrealistic, so to speak.
It's dangerous, and we all fall prey to that. We all fall to it. You know, it's because you want to be accepted.
Yeah,
you want to belong to something.
But it's like you said, it's dangerous. It can be dangerous. You may sacrifice a lot of things to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we create our own values? That's is that something that we can do, or is it sort of something that we have to? Sometimes I think it's hard to do that because we're so influenced by by all the noise, right?
Yeah.
There's so much noise going on. How is it that we create our own values?
I've given this some thoughts, right? So I've given it some thought because we just did a course on skiar, right? And the idea of the camel becoming a lion, the lion fighting the dragon becoming a kid, and the child creates values, right? And that's from Nietzsche's Das Spoke Zarathustra. And no, I don't think that we create new values. I think what we do is that we find new ways to manifest those values. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, explain, please.
Explain, please. I'll give you an example, right? I'm thinking of Madonna, right? Madonna back in the 80s, right? She came out in like a virgin and all this stuff, and it was like, oh my God, taboo, right? Oh my God, this is all taboo, right? The value that she was seeking, right? Or the value that she was manifesting, it's that value of wanting to express herself and be who she is, right? And to be free, to be able to share that part of her, be free to express who she was and how she felt. That's a basic need, to self-express, and we do that in many different ways. Her way, or the choice that she made to how to express that, how to manifest it, was through her music, right? She felt free through that. I'm not even a Madonna fan. I don't even know why I brought her up, but I was just thinking
it's a good example though.
Yeah. So, and even now, let's say, just bringing down more recently, right? We talked about how we would live in a society in which you have females seeking equal treatment, right?
Right.
The way they do that in many different ways, Morgan, through music, so through wanting to protect their bodies. But again, what is the basic need that they're trying to fulfill? That need for self-expression, to that those psychological needs to be who they are, right? But the avenues and the methods that they use are innovative and different, but they're not new values. Because we all want freedom, right, to be who we are.
I got you. It's just what's new about it is the way that we do it.
Exactly.
So that's what you're saying.
So like when I see right now we have so many different conflicts in our world, right? When it comes to people wanting to be different genders and all that stuff, and people not wanting them to be that, or I don't know, and conflict back and forth. The idea is they're not creating new values. They want freedom. They want to be who they want to be,
right,
without feeling afraid. No. Yeah. Back to the basic needs.
Okay.
Without feeling afraid.
Okay.
Without feeling like, oh my God, my life is in danger.
Right. They want safety.
that.
Yeah. That's
right?
true. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's an excellent point, actually.
Yeah.
Because everybody has the right to do and be what they want to be.
Now, a lot of people may not agree, but isn't that their basic right?
That's like your basic, though, when we're talking about your basic needs, everybody deserves that.
Yeah.
But what happens is people confuse the fact that, okay, you were born a man, you need to stay a man.
No.
And that's not, it isn't okay for us to pass that judgment on somebody, because that to them is fulfilling their basic need.
Yeah. But here's when it gets a little tricky, right? Because we all have the tendency to do that because we don't understand things. So we don't want to change it. We don't want to, nope, that's not the way that it should be. Right. And we have laws in place, and this is when it gets problematic. Right.
Well, even I think you talked about religion earlier, or we might have been talking about it outside of this episode, but we were talking about even religion. Religion has a huge influence on all of this.
It does.
When it comes to people making, when it comes to their basic human rights, or their basic needs.
And the thing that religions have, religious people, and people, let me take that back. People that have arrived, no, I could, bro. People that have arrived at a certain realization, they have arrived. They know.
So these people have self-actualized,
which is ridiculous, because that's not true. Yeah, the universe keeps expanding, right? We don't know where it's going. It just keeps going, right? So you never arrive. But again, like I said before, the moment that you think that you have arrived at a certain conclusion or a certain, this is it, then all those people's pursuit of their own happiness becomes problematic.
That's so funny. You just made me think of,
it doesn't matter which way either. Sorry. It doesn't matter which way.
Right. Okay. No, you just made me think of Thomas Sowell. We talked about him. He has this quote where he talks about it, where It's something, and I'm super paraphrasing because I don't remember it. We can put it in the link in the information part of the video, but where he talks about how people, if you think that you know, then you're not as smart as you think you are because you really don't know, or something to that effect. I have the quote somewhere because I thought it was brilliant. You know what I mean? Because it's so true. Because so many people think, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know it. You all need to catch up. Yeah. But they don't really know. No. You think that you know, but you don't really know. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And then what happens is that you are so fixated in your, in your search, the value of freedom, right? Yeah. You become so obsessed with the end goal, right? Of making sure that everything is secure and protected, that nothing happens negatively to me or my kind or what have you. Right. That you become and you start to prevent others from expressing their own basic needs of expressing their freedom. So whichever way you look at it, at its very extremes, it becomes oppressive either way, Yeah, and somewhere in between all this, the individual has to be aware of the fact that, yes, I understand what my personal value is, and I want to be free to be who I am. And I know that it will be places in which I'm going to have to confront and stand up for certain things. But what you cannot do, and what an individual needs to be aware of, is that I'm going to do all those things, but I refuse to be the oppressor of the other one.
Right. Okay. So when you talk about awareness, that's good, because and then we'll go to the individual later. Don't break my microphone.
Sorry.
So when you're talking about awareness, okay, you just mentioned that. So, how can I pose a question? So, how does an individual, how do people create their own personal values?
Again, it's not that you're going to create your own personal values.
Right.
It's that you have to identify, based on your basic human needs, which values are important to you based on the stage of life that you're in.
Right.
Right? So I was talking to a friend of ours the other day, and this friend of ours has been very successful in business, had some betrayal, some setbacks, but he continue on. Very smart, successful person for all intents and purposes. In any way that you define success, right? And we were talking, and he's telling me about this new business venture and things that he's doing and the work that he's doing. And I'm like, wow. In any of that, you didn't even mention money in one thing, in one phrase. His main objective was creating something. You know what I mean? It's a thing when you start realizing that, and I see it happen. I don't know. A few of the people that are around me, I'm seeing it happen with them. It's no longer about achieving a certain status or certain point or what have you. It's the idea of creating something, of making something, an idea, and pursuing that idea, making plans to and creating ways and expressing themselves through that. That's that's the beautiful part, but they already have, they already went through the stage of dependency. They became self-reliant, right? They became mature, and now they're working on doing all these other things, right? So to answer your question is, no, you're going to create. You have to identify what those values are based on which stage on life you're in. So I can't.
So how does somebody do that when they're in the dependency stage?
Well, your emotions will tell you when it's time to transform, right?
Okay.
So again, like I told you before, when you're in dependency and you are a parent, if you're a parent and you see a child constantly defying you.
So is it really happening in the dependency stage though? Isn't it happening more in the stage where you're in the more of the maturity stage? Well, not even
self-reliance.
Self-reliance,
so like you're transitioning.
Right. Self-reliance.
Yeah,
So,
you try to transition to become, for a young person, you try to transition to become more relying on yourself.
Right.
So you're going to go out there and you're going to question everything that society has established for you. And that's okay. I mean, you need to do that. My thing with a parent is that a parent needs to be able to, and not just parents, but people that are surround young adults.
Right.
Is that you have to be able to understand their questioning, because we all did it. Number one, it's part of our nature.
I didn't do that. No, I'm kidding. I did.
It's part of our nature. It's being able to understand that and then be able to guide and help and be there and spot and be like the lighthouse that says, stay clear, watch out for that. It's like, that girl, that boy, not right now. It's like, and then be able to just say, you're going to feel the emotions. You're going to go through all this. You're going to feel that you're in love, and rightly so. You feel all that,
right.
But always be there to like uplift, because they have to try that,
Right.
One of the biggest fallacies and things that, that I hear people that drive themselves hard, right? Like they want to be ultra successful. It's like, well, I don't want my kids, my kids' kids to like need for anything. I'm like, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Not a good idea at all. Because the value of a strong person is be able to transition through the stages of life and gain something out of it. But if everything is done for them, though, there's
no sense of accomplishment.
There's no sense of accomplishment. And then they will always feel in that dependency stage.
Right.
So going back to the bread of shame idea, or that idea that, you're not really doing anything with your life.
You're just taking.
Which is
the idea of.
And it's bad because it creates a narcissist, but it creates so many other problems of people feeling entitled, and
it can have it's a double-edged sword, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not telling to put your kids out work from.
No.
I'm not saying that.
No.
But it's like.
But what you're saying is that they have to be able to experience working hard for something and having that sense of obtaining that goal or that sense of accomplishment, and not having something handed to them just because I don't want you to want for anything, we'd all naturally, as parents, we didn't want our kids to want for anything, but
no,
they had to work when they were in college, but they made it through and they faced challenges and they didn't get new cars and, so yeah, I get what you mean by that. So, okay. So then, I had another question and I totally it just left my little brain right here. There was something I wanted to ask you, or I wanted to share with you so that we could talk about it, but I don't remember what it was. But basically, then just to wrap all of this whole, the values and needs up and everything. So if you were going to summarize it and do an elevator speech on what this episode is about, how would you put it together so that somebody could gain something from that?
I think the first thing is familiarize yourself with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And from there, you could start understanding. You could ask yourself a couple of questions like this, right? Number one, are my physiological needs met? Do I have a place to stay? Do I have food? Do I have access to food on a regular basis, right? Do I have a means to financially take care of myself, right? Do you have a profession? Do you have any? Do you have the basic things that you need in order to maintain your life and work towards that and have a structure in place? Do I have a structure in which I live my life?
Right.
That's the first thing, because you need that for your physiological needs. Then your goals after that. Now you start setting goals once you understand that foundation, and we'll talk about setting goals in a different place. But once you understand that foundation, it's okay. My next goal is I want to Now that I have all my basic needs met, I may want a relationship. I may want a different status. I want to belong to something. So then you got to start investigating what those things are. Something else that is cool that happened to us is once we had our basic needs met, it was like, whoa, what are the things that interest me? You know, and then you start exploring those things, and you set your own goals and your objectives based on the things that are important. Like, well, I want to learn how to do this, and I want to grow. And you know, I want to take the time to just explore and just do things with this.
Right. Well, it's like making the choice to go to go on for an
your
advanced.
School. You wanted, and that was something that you really wanted.
I wanted to do, but we definitely needed to make sure our personal or our basic needs were met. Yeah,
and again, and you could do that individually, or you could do that collectively with a relationship. You know, and you know, we build our foundation together. We've done that, and it's been a collective journey, a quest, collectively. But people could do it on their own too.
Well,
and then,
even in our collective. In our relationship, we do things that are individual. Certainly you went through the schooling process with me, but I had to do the work. Yeah. You know what I mean? And vice versa. You've done things and it's been all from you. You know, you're working on a book. So I think that if you are in a relationship with somebody that, it's great to have a collective, the values and whatnot are collective, but also you have to have your
individual things.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
And you have to be able to do that. So you have to evaluate where you are. You know, we're more in the mature stage. You know, we're not dependent on our parents, on the government, or anybody like that. We depend on our work and what we do. We're self-reliant when it comes to that aspect. We have skills. We have talent. We have things that if we have setbacks, we could readjust and figure something out. So we have the capability of doing that, to be self-reliant even in the midst of struggles, right? Because life happens. So you have to be able to adjust. But if you don't have those skills, you have to get to that. You want to get to that point, and so that way you can start exploring other potentials and things like that. Now, it doesn't have to be in sequence, but you have to understand where you are. Yeah. You know, in life. And once you do that, then you could start, progressively going. Right. The last thing that I will say to anybody is, if you're going to model your life after someone, you got to look at that person, like every single thing. And you got to almost do a background check or a 20-point inspection or whatever. It's like, just be wary and careful of who you model yourself after. You know, because you don't get to see a person 100% of the time. You see aspects and points and sides of it.
We're seeing their masks.
You're seeing their masks. You don't see everything. Right. You know? Yeah. If you see someone and you like aspects of that person, take those aspects, but not the whole person. Don't idolize, you know? Yeah. It's because our esteem a lot of the times comes from outside of us. Right. It's the projection of somebody else or the idea of somebody else. That's the thing, you know? And just me saying this, I struggle with this, right? Like, I don't like the way that I talk. I talk funny. I talk fast. I talk funny.
Well, you're Dominican. You have an
It doesn't matter that, but it's just like, you know, people say that I talk too much, which I do.
Well, you do talk too much.
I'm trying to curve that, but you know, it was funny because the other day, Fred sent us that speech by Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And he said clearly, well, somebody told me that I will never be this because I'm not from America. Oh yeah. Somebody told me that I couldn't do this because of the way that I talk.
Because of his accent.
Right, of his accent. And he said that James Cameron hired him because the way he talked.
Joke's on you.
Joke's on
that.
you, right? So, right. So you gotta be careful. Yeah. You know, I have to be careful too as to, okay, what am I, trying to who am I modeling myself after? Right. And we have to look out for that because we live in a culture that the projections are so powerful. Yeah. Right? That you could easily be swayed away.
There's so much noise. Yeah. And social media and all this other stuff, all these things that we have at our fingertips don't help. So.
And the things that we do, it's just so funny because it becomes so clear. the things that we do, whether we believe in it's, you know, a certain cause or a certain thing, you know, like we sacrifice a lot of ourselves for a certain movement, right? Because any movement, you know, you begin, there's a lot of movements happening right now, but then you begin to see the everything fractioning out, like breaking apart, because you could believe in something, but you know, as an individual, you don't believe it 100%. But we sacrifice our values, our individual values, for that collective thing.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You know?
Yeah. Okay.
So if I have a cause and all these people are in this cause and they're like, yeah, but they go out and let's say they riot and they breaking restaurants or shops and things.
That goes back to what you were talking about earlier, though, where you need to have a firm, the individual has to have a firm understanding of what their values are along with that correlate with their needs.
Yes.
And what are you willing to sacrifice to be acknowledged, to have esteem, to belong, to be a part of something, to be a part of that movement? What am I going to have to sacrifice?
What am I going to have to sacrifice as a person?
So that basically goes back to what you were saying earlier.
It goes back. Everything goes back to it. If you really look at it, it really goes back to that. Which
is why I touched on awareness, because I think that the individual, because this is basically what we come back to when we're ending any of our episodes, is we come back to the individual accountability or responsibility, right, that we have.
Yeah.
And that part of that, not part of it, the majority of that is self-awareness.
Yeah.
Is just being aware of that and being cognizant of your own, and being, I think it's also being authentic to yourself. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Well, I thought that was interesting. So, yeah, thanks for sharing.
Oh, but thank you for sharing too.
Thanks for watching this episode of A Soul's Quest podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you check out our website, asoulsquest.com. And also make sure you check out our YouTube channel where you'll find all of our episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and share.